I am constantly coming across examples of where if you translate word for word, you miscommunicate. In Acts 6:2, the whole issue of waiting on tables is a great example of this. You'll remember the first problem in the early church was a cultural divide between Hellenists and Hebrews. And by that we probably mean the widows that were primarily Hellenistic in culture and mostly spoke Greek, and then those that are primarily from Israel and would have spoken Aramaic. So they're probably both Jewish groups, but there's a cultural divide. And what was happening was that the widows who were more Hellenistic, who spoke the Greek, were being neglected in the daily distribution of food. And so the 12 apostles get together, they get everyone together, and they say, it is not right for us to neglect the word of God, which is preaching, which is what they were commissioned to do, in order to, then here's the phrase, wait on tables. Now, this has always struck me as a strange expression because it sounds like the 12 are being demeaning. We're about preaching the word of God. We're not going to wait on tables. The church is in need of all kinds of service. Some are preachers, some are teachers, some are more involved in daily serving kind of duties. But there's no way that, in my mind anyway, that an apostle would degrade those who were involved in daily service. So this verse has always bothered me. I was looking at it today and I realized that the whole issue is the diakoneo word group. Now, while the actual word diakonos, the office of a deacon, 1 Timothy 3, is not being used, and they're not calling these people deacons, it is the word group that ties the passage together. Here you have the verb diakoneo, and up in verse 1, you have the noun diakonia. So what's going on? Well, part of my problem is that if you're going to translate this to wait on tables, there's only one way to hear that in English, and that is in a demeaning sense, and these are basically servers in a restaurant, right? I mean, I think that's the only way this can work. Here's the problem with that. The problem is the daily distribution of the food, not who serves at the tables. So how would the problem of the daily distribution of food be solved by changing waiters, as if there were such thing in those days as waiters? Well, it's all tied up with what the word group is meaning here. Diakonia basically means, you can see it over here in Bauer, that it is mediation, assignment, performance of a service, preparing for example, preparing for a social event, and then eventually it moves into an actual office. But that's not what's going on here. What's going on here, these are people that are rendering assistance. And you can see this is where Bauer puts our verse. Now, part of the answer is to realize that diakonia has already been used twice in Acts. In talking about Judas, it says, "For he was numbered among us and received his allotted share of this ministry." So diakonia is being used to describe the apostolic ministry. And again in verse 25, take the place, this is to appoint Judas's replacement, to take the place of this ministry. So the diakonia word group so far is being used to describe the apostolic ministry. And what is that apostolic ministry? Well, we've got it in 1:8, being witnesses. In other words, preaching the truth about Jesus. So with that as a background, you come into chapter 6 and you realize that this is not an office. This is about the daily, here's your daily distribution of foods, the service of daily handing out food to those who were in need. This is why Lucas said earlier in Acts that no one had any needs, because everybody had things in common. They shared what they have. And one of the things they shared was money to buy food and food itself. So there was a daily distribution of food, and that was the ministry. And the apostles didn't think that that's what they should be doing. They should be preaching what they were told to do in Acts 1:8. So with that as a background, you get down here and you have the apostles saying, it is not right for us neglecting the Word of God, so the preaching of the Word of God, in order to serve tables. Now, this cannot mean serving at a table like you would get at a restaurant. It has to be something else. Otherwise, they haven't solved the problem identified in verse 1. And it's interesting, and this is where the word-for-word translation is creating a problem. And when you look at most of the English translations, they're carrying the word-for-word translation over in order to wait on tables. We have that in the NIV. The NASB is serve tables. ESV serve tables. CSB wait on tables. NRSV wait on tables. Serve is certainly better than wait, because wait can only be being a waitress or a waiter in a restaurant. The Net Bible, wait on tables. It isn't until you get to the NLT that you have not running a food program. Now that actually, I think, is exactly what the apostles are saying. Running a food program is a good thing, but it's not an apostle thing. They should be teaching the Word of God, and other people should be doing the important work of distributing the food, i.e. running a food program. So I would say this is a great example that if you translate word for word, to serve tables, to wait on tables, you are miscommunicating, because the only thing we hear in English is being a waiter. That's not the issue. The issue is the daily distribution, the ministry of the daily distribution of food. Be really careful translating word for word that it doesn't miscommunicate.